Welcome to ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast, aka CTP, in association with TheLibertyBeacon.com. And I am your host, Joseph M. Leonard, and that's Lenard. CTP is your no muss, no fuss, just me, you, and an occasional guest type podcast. I really appreciate you tuning in. As Graham Norton would say, let's get on with the show.
Hello, everybody. Today's show is on anxiety. Before I ask the guest to introduce herself, I'm going to do a little mini monologue here, right? Because anxiety, what are we talking here? Everybody, it seems, certainly everybody I know, if you know any completely happy-go-lucky, never get anxious kinds, I want to meet them. Because with this high inflation, high crime rates, and no, spare me, the crime is down malarkey. There are less cops, so they're even responding to less crimes, let alone making less arrests, because we know you on the left won't bother to prosecute them for crimes. So no, crime isn't down. Look at the calls to the police and you will see incidents are up. You're just not bothering to arrest or prosecute them. At any rate, given all that, the protests and just the insanity going on everywhere, everybody I know certainly has stress-induced anxiety, at least a little bit on occasion. I don't understand. Again, if there's anybody out there that's able to escape it entirely these last 3 years, I want to meet them. But of course, that is separate and those are just the internal forces. Then there are the external forces, because long gone are the days before World War II that we could be Fortress America and pretend anything that happened everywhere else would never bother us. Well, in this day of ICBMs and global economies, what happens there impacts us whether we like it or not. So all that internal and external stress now affects us. Versus, of course, then those with like extreme clinical anxiety that they constantly deal with. So those, everywhere in between is what we're kind of going to discuss today. So hopefully there's something for everybody. So let's get on with it. And Marin, please introduce yourself and your background and that sorts of thing.
Sure. Thank you for having me today. So my name is Marin Canaday, and I am a stay-at-home mom, but I'm also an author. I struggle with OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder. And so I am very familiar with anxiety. And I've written 2 books. They're children's picture books about my OCD. And they're written as a way for kids to connect with OCD and to start a conversation with others about what it's like to have this disorder. And it's really been healing to me to be able to speak about my disorder and my anxiety and be open about it. I found when I tried to hide it and suppress it, it just got worse and worse.
Yeah, I mean, that can be true of a lot of things, right? That's a completely different topic, but depression is also that way. You try to gloss it over, ignore it, hope it will go away. It only exacerbates, if I can get the word out correctly, the problem. Same thing here. You're saying firsthand experience in that.
Yes.
So again, I'm glad I came across you. I'm a member of Pastor Robert Thibodeau that I've known for a few years now. He started a thing called Faith Casters, and this being a Christian show, I'm certainly happy to be part of that. So I came across you through that, and the minute I saw the word anxiety there, that I could talk about anxiety, I was like, who doesn't have anxiety these days? Definitely a good topic to talk about. So,
Exactly.
yeah, so thank you for coming on. I think now, now your anxiety is I can't talk today. I spent most of the day outside. Those
Yeah.
looking on the behind the scenes video, I look kind of like a turnip because I got too much sun, didn't wear a
Yeah.
hat.
Oh,
I tried to stay in the shade, didn't do it
no,
enough, and
doesn't work.
I'm kind of burnt. So, but and then all the sun and the wind. I with my health issues, I don't spend a lot of days outside. So
Yeah.
spending all day outside, it's like, whew, I'm whooped just from that. So, uh, your anxiety is brought on by the OCD. Have you had the OCD basically your whole life, or did that something develop?
Right. So I've had it since early childhood, and it was very internal. In my early childhood, you couldn't tell from just looking at me that I was struggling with worries and concerns and obsessions in my head. When I became an adult, it became very outwardly apparent, and I had to seek help. And that's actually when I got my diagnosis. So, it affected the way I couldn't eat anymore. I couldn't sleep anymore. I couldn't function day to day, just daily tasks, because of the intrusive thoughts that would just get stuck in my head, and they would be on repeat all day long, all night long. And they just caused high levels of anxiety that I couldn't turn off. I had to prove these fears wrong in order to move on from them. But these fears are not always easy to prove wrong. For example, when I was in elementary school, junior high actually, my fear, my obsession was my germs are going to kill someone. And so how do I prove that wrong? My germs have never killed anyone before, but this could be the one time that they do that, and then I'm a murderer, and then where do I go from there? So sometimes it's very hard to prove these fears wrong. It's like a constant alarm bell going off in your head, like danger, 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 that you have to solve this problem immediately, or something bad's going to happen.
Yeah, I've never been I've got a myriad of health issues. I've
Mm-hmm.
never been diagnosed with OCD. I have been diagnosed with anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So I would dare say I have somewhat mild OCD, because I do have that where, like at night, my brain won't shut off. So
Yes.
what if I'd have done this instead of done that? Kinds of
Right.
things. And it can drive you crazy, but luckily I don't suffer OCD to the full
Yeah.
extent where it is a horrendous clinical issue
Yes.
every minute of every day. So
Right.
I can only slightly relate to that. Whereas again, now for general anxiety, not like OCD, just the stresses in life, that
Right.
other form, I would imagine that can both ebb and flow and rise and wane for
Yes.
some people. Like for me, it does that to some degree.
Yeah.
There, when I first got sick, I was on Xanax, the top dose, twice a day, every day for 3.5 years. And then,
Right.
of course, when I finally got to the point that my health improved a little, and I got less anxious. Didn't need to be on that all the time. There was, of course, that I don't have a addictive personality, so I didn't have the mental addiction, but I, of course, had the physical issue of withdrawals, and it
Yeah.
took 3 times to get off that. So I
Yeah.
still have a prescription of
Right.
Xanax sitting on my table
Right.
over here, but
Yeah.
I only take it when I get to the point where my body is literally shaking, and
Right.
I've got to have that, or I'll be up for 3 days. So,
Right.
and I never take it more than 3 days in a row, because I never want that physical withdrawal thing
It's
issue.
so hard. It's so hard. Yes.
Yeah.
So I was going to give you an example of what it was like for me. About 7 years ago, I had the obsessive thought, what if? And normally they start with what ifs. What if my husband gets disabled and I have to work and I have to care for him and I have to care for the children? Oh my goodness, how would I be able to do this, right? And I got so lost in the OCD fears and having to prove them wrong that I lost my ability to focus on reality. I mean, none of this stuff was happening at the moment. It was all what ifs and thinking of the future. So I knew if my husband was disabled, I'd get fired from a job. And because I can't focus when I have OCD, I'm always constantly thinking and trying to solve a problem in my head. And I felt oddly like I was being responsible in a way by solving this problem in advance and being prepared in advance. So here's my thought process. And I look now with a healthy brain and think, wow, I was really sick. I was thinking like, okay, if I get fired from my job, how much money would I need? Could I sell the house? Well, what if the market goes bad again? Oh my goodness, maybe I could move in with my parents. But what if they pass away? Well, I better find a job I can do. So I check all the job sites over and over and over again. I mean, my computer probably knew that I had OCD because I was back like every 2 seconds. And I would think, oh, I could do this job, but then that job would be filled and it would disappear from the job site. And so I thought, well, I better get a job now. Just in case for the future I need one, I better, get it now. And so I went back to my old job teaching students as a intervention teacher part-time. And I was absolutely miserable. I was crunching numbers in my head the whole time, trying to make, mock budgets and how would I, do all this on this salary. And that job ended up ending with COVID. So this was relatively recent. And it took me a long time to realize that I was trying to control the future and that I was taking God completely out of the picture. I would quote the verse, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, Philippians 4:13. But I didn't really believe it. And I wasn't really trusting God that he was going to help me through, no matter what came my way. So the other day, as I was preparing for this podcast, I read a devotional that spoke directly to my fears. And it's by Joyce Meyer. And she wrote, I look at some of the things people go through and I say to myself, I'm afraid I could never go through that with the graciousness and courage I've seen them display. Then I remind myself that when we must go through something negative, God gives us the strength to do so. When we merely fear going through something, we do it without any help from God at all. And that's exactly what I was doing. I was so stuck on solving a problem that I took God completely out of it. I can't control anything. And the more I tried to control it and to, prepare for every little scenario, the more it became evident to me that this is out of my hands. Clearly, there is a higher power that's going to have to help me to solve any of these problems. So to win my war on anxiety, I learned that I would have to trust God to help me when I needed it, not beforehand, not, 5 years before anything even happened, I need to be willing to say, if and when something occurs and something comes my way, God will get me through it.
Yeah, now you mentioned what ifs right now.
Yeah.
What ifs, I think, are a normal and natural part of life. We need, on occasion, to ask what ifs, to prepare indeed for some things that might be right around the corner.
Right.
The problem is, as like you're laying it out, is that one what if would open 10 more rabbit holes of what ifs, which
Right.
would then open 10 more, and it would exponentially get to a bazillion what ifs that is too much for any person to handle. And it almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that you break down because you've driven yourself to that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, I found myself just recently slipping back into that. I've been healthy for quite a while, but that fear of what if something comes my way that's too hard again? What am I going to do? And the fear just started spinning. I like to think of wheels in a mud pit, and, you know, mud is just flying everywhere, but there's no traction to get out of the pit. So my wheels are just spinning. And I go to my prayer journals. I have 8 of them. And I started when I, you know, went into my first or my second adult episode of OCD. And I started keeping track of rough times and prayers that I would pray and the way God would answer those prayers through devotionals, through songs, through, you know, different ways that he would speak to me. And so I found 5 particular rough patches that stuck out to me. One was I was having an extremely difficult OCD episode, and I called out to God. I prayed, you know, Lord, I need help. I need a sign. I need to hear from you. And the next morning I looked in my email inbox and I was getting a devotional from Proverbs 31 Ministries. And the focus verse for the devotional was Exodus 14:14. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. And you know what? It took a long time, but he restored my mental health and he proved my fears wrong one by one. The second one was I'm desperate for medication to work. If you've ever been on medication or trying to get on medication, you know how difficult that can be. You know, just because you take one doesn't mean that that's going to be the one that works for you. And it can be exhausting and it can be just a roller coaster. So I felt like I had to try I had to find something that worked right away because I was just at my wit's end. I needed this to work. And the medication I tried I had a reaction to, and I had to stop. And I was so discouraged and I was so disappointed. And once again, I went to my email because I thought, hey, if God spoke to me once, he can speak to me again. Maybe there's a message from God in there. And so I look at my email and there's Proverbs 31 Ministries devotional, and it says Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And you know what? I believe that God was speaking to me right there. And it gave me that breath of fresh air that, yes, I can wait. I can be patient to find the right medication. And today I am on that right medication and it is helping me. And then another time I had a very intense time of family members being ill and another family member needing my help almost daily. And God gave me the message, Nehemiah 9:21. For 40 years you sustained them in the desert. They lacked nothing. Their clothes did not wear out, and nor did their feet become swollen. And God kept me healthy and strong for a year as I helped out with my family. I almost felt untouchable. And this was around the COVID time. So it was a big deal that I was able to stay mentally and physically strong. Another time, I'm going back into the fear of trying to do hard things. I pray, I confess to God, I know I'm not trusting. I need help through this. Please speak truth to me. And the devotional after the prayer was once again, Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. My last one was at the beginning of this year. I was very intimidated by a busy school year ahead. I've got 3 kids. They all have their separate activities. I was publishing my second book. My youngest was in speech and martial arts, and then there's orchestra and basketball and you name it. And for me, stress is a trigger for OCD. And so I had avoided stress and busyness like the plague. We really were stay-home people. But I didn't want to stand in the way of my kids being involved in doing things and finding things that they loved. So I was on board to be the taxi driver mom, right? And I was afraid that I wasn't going to be able to do all this and keep a healthy brain, that I would fall back into depression, that I'd fall back into anxiety. And then one more activity got added in. And it was just, oh, Lord, how am I going to do this? I'm feeling so overwhelmed. And then I read a nightly devotional to my daughters. It wasn't even my devotional. I was just reading it to my girls. And once again, it was Exodus 14:14. The Lord will fight for you. Just stay calm. And later on, I got another devotional from Christine Kane this time that spoke to me in my stress. And it says, your battle is spiritual. Maybe you're feeling under attack even now and are wondering how you will manage. But take heart. You will never know what you are capable of in God's strength if you run away from trials and avoid obstacles. Pushing ahead and fighting the battle despite the wavering of your faith will actually build your faith and dependence on God. So place your trust in Him and know that God is with you and that He is at work in you. His strength will see you through. And the result? I've stayed mentally healthy all year long. This is amazing for me because I've been in and out of OCD episodes, from my 30s pretty consistently. And to stay strong and healthy and able to be there for my kids and not buckle under pressure is a big thing.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to make an important interjection. I wanted to go back to meds, and I think you circled it back for me perfectly. Now, if you can pray away something, that's
right.
Wonderful. But
yes.
We have chemical imbalances at times. You need the meds.
Yes.
And meds in general. Our modern medical system is pretty miraculous at times. There's some, like way back when the advent of aspirin was a miracle drug at the time. Penicillin, a miracle drug. I'm allergic to penicillin products, though, so which leads me to what I was going to say. Like you had a reaction to it. A drug could be a miracle drug for one person, but for another, that might make them worse. It's like that with depression meds and those with depression. I've known various different people. I was like, oh, well, brand X was my miracle drug, but the other person, brand X almost killed me, right?
Yes.
So brand Y was their thing. So yes, like you said earlier on, you have to be patient and work through it all. And let me make this disclaimer. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an actor. I don't play a doctor, even on TV. But I am somebody with health issues who has gone through a lot of different medications for a lot of different things for a lot of different reasons. So, just speaking anecdotally from firsthand experience and understanding, because any drug you see advertised, of course, may cause blah, 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 but they cover every possible side effect, or they try to, right? Because, again, person A, person B, person C, through Z, we're all physically somewhat the same. We're all humans, but our chemical composition is just slightly off and makes a difference. Plus, what else you may be taking, how those interact.
Exactly. Yeah, medication for me was a struggle. I was very prideful. I didn't want anything to do with medication. And so my first adult episode, I actually convinced myself that I was better and that I was healed. And so they had given me a starter packet, and I used that starter packet to get off without telling my doctors. And I would not recommend that. And then the second time it came back so much worse. And you have to take things stronger than, the first time because you got off. And then you have to start from ground zero again, trying to build up to where you were at. And so it's just a miserable process. So I definitely would not, if you need the medication, take the medication.
Yeah, OCD, extreme stress, extreme anxiety. Like I said, I still keep Xanax here. I try not to take it, but I know myself well enough now and work with my doctors, and they know, yes, okay, you can have it and only need it or take it when you really, really need it. Other than that, I deal with it because I'm on so many other medications for other things. I don't want to be mixing a bazillion things. And like you said, if you don't keep a mate, and it depends on what we're talking about, right? You don't get a cold and take sinus meds for the rest of your life.
Right.
There are things you take them only when you need them. Other things you've got to know, well, this is a permanent issue and condition for me. I need to have a maintenance dose that I'm going to take probably the rest of my life. I've got a few of those.
Yep. And I finally have come to peace with that. I used to be so ashamed that when I go to the doctor and I'd have to list off what medications I'm on, it was so embarrassing to me. But now it's just like, hey, I can't do life without these. This is me, and this is what I need, and this is what I will be taking for the rest of my life.
And it's a shame. It's not like we want that, right? I can hear it from what you're saying. You don't want that, but again, we've got to recognize sometimes that is just reality. And I mean, thank God, in a sense, we are alive in these times that these are available. Now, I think there's a lot of Munchausen syndrome going on in some cases with some of these things. In my opinion, another episode I discussed this. I think we should go back. I loved Ronald Reagan. Nobody is perfect. We're all capable of making mistakes. He deregulated the advertisement of drugs direct to consumers. In hindsight, big mistake, because now the drug companies indeed are trying to convince you have something their drug can fix, whether you really got it or not. But I'd like to see, go back to, if you're a Big Bang Theory watcher before, remember Penny at the end of the series winding down became a pharmaceutical rep. That's the way it's supposed to work. They talk to the doctors, let the doctors know we have these, they're available for that, and you and your doctor should be talking, and them say, well, we could try this. Not you go into your doctor, oh my God, pharmaceutical, whatchamacallit, has convinced me I've got condition, whatever, please give me the pill. And sadly, a lot of doctors now are in on pharmaceutical money, so they, okay.
Yeah, I get a lot of questions about my diagnosis and how was I diagnosed. And so as a child and into my adulthood, I had no idea what OCD even was. I just knew that I worried a lot and that I needed a lot of reassurance. But when I went into the doctor, the psychiatrist, she had me fill out a questionnaire. And most of the questions that I answered were underneath the OCD category. And so that's how I received my diagnosis. You know, it wasn't self-diagnosed. It was definitely from a doctor, and then they started medicating from there.
Yeah. And the other thing is that worked out great for you. Finally, thank God for that.
Yeah.
But the other thing I want to insert also is Reagan. I mentioned Reagan once already. Reagan said, "Trust but verify." Get a second and a
Right.
third opinion. If you are even remotely unsure of what's going on with you, because, you know, there are bad apples in everything.
Yeah. And I started out with that. I went to one psychiatrist who said that I was paranoid. And I thought, I don't think I'm paranoid, you know, and there was no questionnaire to fill out. It was just him going off of what I was saying. And so I just didn't have a good feeling. So I did switch to a new psychiatrist. And that's where there was the questionnaire. And I just felt like, okay, she's really taking the time to find out what my thoughts are and what category they fall into and what characteristics they take. So, yeah, I definitely think that it doesn't hurt to get a second opinion.
Right. Or even sometimes a third.
Right.
But again, going back to the ads on TV, these drugs, some of them are like they can work for 2, 3, 4 different things. So they're likely to convince you of something to take their drug for. So multiple opinions is good and important. I forgot where I was going to go with that, but yeah, I mean, the one doctor took remember where I was going to go. But the one doctor took the extra steps to try to make sure they were really drilling down your diagnosis, because the point I was going to make is sometimes symptoms can be symptoms of multiple different problems.
Right.
And you've got to take as a whole all your symptoms to narrow down specific, because, yeah, someone might be paranoid, a paranoid schizophrenic, but you've got to go into all the other things to make sure that that is indeed the spot-on diagnosis, not a misdiagnosis.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
these are complicated issues.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, when I did end up going back through my prayer journal, I'm kind of proud of myself, but proud of God too. I remembered that all God had done, and I remembered all that he had said to me, and it restored my faith, and it stopped my wheels spinning. Now, normally I would have thought that I would have relied solely on my medication to do that. You know, just because I'm taking the medication doesn't mean that I'm not having OCD thoughts anymore. It makes me calmer. It helps me with the physical aspect of anxiety. But the mental aspect is still, you know, I have to play my part. And so when I did that and I went back to my prayer journals, it really stopped my wheels spinning. And I was able to get traction and get out of that mud pit. And I found hope again, and I have peace with the future that, you know, whatever comes my way, God is going to get me through it. Because of all those times, I mean, how many times does he have to tell you, you know, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, or I will fight your battle. All you have to do is be still. You know, for me, it takes quite a few times because, you know, let's face it, I struggle with the obsession and having to prove it for 100% true, you know. But, you know, when God is clearly speaking to you, it gets your attention. And for me, it's just been great to look back on prayer journals and devotionals and to mark them up. What is God telling me? So that in the future, when I am struggling, I can look back and say, oh, wait, no, this is what God said. I can put this fear to rest.
Right. I think what popped in my head again was, didn't say it yet. You're right. Both medicines and faith working
Right.
together, right? Yeah. So, a lot of times, one or the other, unless if God's opening up the skies and granting you a miracle,
Mhm.
you know, to completely cure you of whatever forever and ever going forward, uh,
Right.
you
Which
need the
completely,
mix, the
yeah,
blend.
he's completely able to do that and does do that.
At
But
times for some, right? Yeah.
that's not everybody's story. And that hasn't been my experience. My experience has been faith and medicine working together um, to help me through anxiety.
Yeah, I find that too. For me, anecdotally, again, kind of on the same page together is, uh, as you said, the medicine takes you so far, the faith takes you over, helps the rest of that way. Because yes, I get that way too with the stress-induced anxiety, and the pill can only a lot of times take you so far. But again, we're all different.
Right.
Everybody's story is going to be different. What is going to work or not work for you is going to be different from Marin or from me. Oh, where was I? I'm so worn out from the weather today. It's like
Yeah.
my brain is partially fried. But I wanted to pivot. If we could kind of try, it's difficult, because one's own personal experiences obviously what we know best. But if we can both try to remove ourselves from our own issue and uh, remedy regarding anxiety, the
Mhm.
person just dealing with general everyday stress, not a
Right.
clinical chronic condition of it, which then leads to chronic conditioned uh, anxiety all the time. Do you have any advice, like, for? It's hard again because I mean,
I'm I'm stuck in my OCD anxiety that I'm not sure even what uh normal stress anxiety may look like.
yeah. Well, I try to remember back. Uh, Before I got into information technology, which was what my career was for the most of my life, and then being on call all the time and that. So that was a lot of my stress. It wasn't so. Before all that, I still would have the average kind of person daily stressors of my paycheck doesn't quite go as far as I need it to, kind of thing. And that's kind of just what I'm trying to refer or hearken to here.
Yeah.
And it's hard because I don't want someone to go on meds if they really don't have
Right.
to. Definitely try prayer and meditation, try yoga, try, go
You know,
join
exercise,
a gym.
yeah, exercising really helped for me. I did Zumba there for a while and just, getting a good sweat in and, it's um a brain break. I used to play volleyball in junior high and high school and college actually. Um and I found that I could turn my brain off while I did that sport. I had to, otherwise I'd get hurt. You get a ball in the face because you're not paying attention, trying to solve a problem, trying to prove it wrong. You can't do that and play volleyball at the same time. And so that actually was so instrumental in me getting through OCD as a child. And so I would even say that would help with normal anxiety. Going out, getting active, turning your brain off for a while, turning some music on, listening to some good, positive, encouraging music. That's when I got to be an adult. I didn't have that volleyball team anymore that I could go out and play volleyball and turn off my mind. And that's when it got so, so much harder to fight. But yeah, exercise is definitely a big one for me.
Any form of, if you can, self-distract yourself.
Yes.
Like
yes.
I find sometimes a de-stressor that can work for me, again, may not for others, is pretty much nowadays with streaming, or if you've got any kind of cable, you've got a DVR. So I record a bunch of game shows.
Yeah.
Especially the mindless ones,
yes.
not the ones that you have to think about, no whammies, right? Just mindless stuff. I've got like 100 game shows in my game show folder. At any given moment, they kind of like roll in and roll out, so I don't fill up my thing. But at times, if I go to bed, I can't sleep, it's like I'm not to that point where I'm jittery and need a Xanax. So let's put on a couple mindless game shows. Like
yes.
I love on not Whose Line Is It? Doggone it! Now one of the local channels has got you know what? I'm see now. Here's my brain not shutting off and not wanting to give up. It's not. It's going to bother me unless if I go look. Funny you should ask.
Funny you should ask.
A silly, stupid game show. It's got a panel of celebrities, and they structure every question in a way so that the guests, it's kind of like the old Hollywood squares in a way too. Every time a question, the panelists would try to say something funny. Well, they ask every question in a way so that it sets up a joke. So, right? Even though some of the questions are statistic this or do you agree or disagree with the guest to get the points or the money? So, other ones I watch, I like Name That Tune, a reboot of the old one, Press Your Luck. I was joking about the no whammies. Elizabeth Banks is doing a newer version of that show. One of my fun ones that I like that's mindless, Who the Bleep Is That? Where 3 contestants and it's celebrity gossip kind of thing. It's like, here's a scattered picture of a celebrity we're slowly going to bring into focus. Who is that? Nothing serious to think about, just mindless stuff to get your mind distracted. Now, I went way long on that, but you agree.
Yes, I like to garden. I can find myself getting lost in the yard and just weeding and making things look beautiful. It just is so healing to my mind. And I also do crafting, paper crafts. I am a Sunday school teacher, so I do a lot of prep work for the kids and their crafts for each Sunday. And, somebody asked me, wow, that's a lot of work, that must be overwhelming. And I said, well, actually, it's kind of my therapy. I can turn my brain off and focus on cutting on the line, and that's my deal. So, yeah, there are things that are just mindless that allow you to a distraction that really work well for turning anxiety off.
Yeah, like my sister now, she's 7 years younger than I am, but now as she's getting older, she not the bedazzling thing, but them little patterns that you then put the beads on.
Dots. I think it's diamond dots. My daughter does those. Yeah.
Something like that.
Almost like cross stitch, but it's with little diamonds that you put on a sticker page. Yeah.
Yes. To make a pattern. And she's got herself doing a lot of those. Helps pass the time, helps relax, and our citywide garage sale is this weekend, which is why I spent so much time out today. I normally don't do that. I did that today to sell knickknacks and whatnot, lying around the house. It's like, rather than just throw them out, get a quarter or $1 for something and let somebody enjoy it. So we both benefit out of it. But she does those all the time. So she's selling those.
That's great.
She's not getting the money she invested in them back. But that's exactly right. That's not the point. She's had her de-stress and ability to distract and pass time with those. Now, hey, if somebody else can enjoy them and I can get a couple bucks of what I spent on them back, it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. I can see how that would also be helpful. I crochet baby blankets as well, and just the monotony of making each little stitch helps to turn my mind off. And thinking also of who's this baby blanket going to be for in the future, and say a little prayer for the baby, for the mom, and it's a good thing as well. Yeah.
Turning a positive into it. You're in a what if again, but it's a good one. It's a more positive one. I don't know who will get this, but somebody will. It will be a win-win. That's the word. Oh, my brain just not working. A win-win all the way around for everybody. Oh, well, we've gone a lot longer than I was expecting we were going to. Because again, with the way my brain works, there's always a bazillion different rabbit holes to go down, too. It's like, so now, after this, probably indeed, to shut my mind off, I'll go watch Funny You Should Ask and laugh. Mindless stuff. I get a chuckle out of it because I like to kind of play along too because I'm also known as Jokester Joe on Savage Unfiltered podcast. So I like to play along in my mind. Well, what joke would I tell there? They're asking a question. They're setting up a response. What joke might I tell before they tell one and see if they match? Right. Or, I think my joke would have been better. But so at any rate, and that's for the benefit of the audience, making fun of myself. For some, in podcasts, the cardinal sin is to avoid ahs and ums and, those verbal tics. Well, over the last couple of months, I developed this crutch of segueing, saying, at any rate. So now I've incorporated it in as a joke about myself here, how stupid I am constantly saying, at any rate. But indeed, at any rate, thank you, Marin, for coming on. I hope people got something out of this discussion. Again, with all the anxiety and stress with everything happening on this planet right now, I felt everybody probably needed this discussion.
Yes, I agree.
All right. Take care. God bless.
All right.
Thank you for having tuned in for ChristiTutionalist Politics Show. If you haven't already, please check out my primary internationally available book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you. Available anywhere books are sold. If you have locally run bookstores still near you, they can order it for you, or autographed copies are available online direct from me via terrorstrikes.info/shop. Be sure to check out more about today's discussion at thelibertybeacon.com, where my articles drop every Saturday. And let me remind, over time, the fancy high production items will come, but for now, for starters, it's just you as a very appreciated listener by me. All substance, no fluff, no fancy high production intro or inserts, at least yet, just straight to key discussion points. A show that looks at a variety of topics, mostly politics, through a Christian U.S. constitutionalist lens. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Take care. God bless. Like and subscribe to ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast and share episodes. We need your help to grow the show.